Now, the other conversation now that I want to dwell in that has, of course, made rounds on social media platforms, police has talked about it. Robert Chagulanyi's team has talked about it. Yesterday, Robert Chagulanyi actualized his call to Ugandans for a peaceful protest for two reasons. One, the fact that a number of opposition members were abducted. Two, the fact that the elections were unfair. Now, on the day that they had said they would protest, Robert Chagulanyi instead went to Parliament to report these cases to the Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga, who said she would look into the matter and investigate the information on abductions. Now, yesterday, Robert Chagulanyi and his team, members of Parliament on the NUP camp, took to the streets, went to the city center and peacefully protested, saying that they need their people back. The slogan and the chanting was, "Bring back our people, bring back our people, bring back our people." And that's the song that they were singing, of course, with Robert Chagulanyi leading it. There was a picture of Robert Chagulanyi sitting on a border and putting his hands up and his fist and saying, "Bring back our people." There were pictures where borders, cars, you know Robert Chagulanyi, wherever he goes, he has a crowd. So there was a huge crowd behind him and everybody was chanting, "Bring back our people." Now, when police saw that happening, and it was in the city center, they slapped a number of charges on those people, and one of them was the illegal holding of those protests, whether it being violent or non-violent, because earlier on police had communicated to Robert Chagulanyi and told them if they wanted to have those protests, they were supposed to write to police prior and let them know about it. Now, Robert Chagulanyi has been arrested, but in the arrest, he was not taken to prison. He was taken, him and his colleagues wrote a statement, and then Robert Chagulanyi was taken back to Magere, where there is a heavy police deployment. However, there's also a statement that was sent on our phones to tell us that Robert Chagulanyi will be holding a press conference today. What he will be discussing, we'll be bringing for you in Select Ayenjaulo and Select News. Now let's look at that particular story where Robert Chagulanyi was held by police and taken into custody, driven off in a very high speed as he went and wrote a statement. And then to Komeo, get your phone calls and your views on this matter and what police is saying over the illegality of this protest and what Robert Chagulanyi is saying over the legality of this protest.
Hey, we are non-violent. We want our people back.
The National Unity Platform President Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu allies Bobi Wine has been arrested for holding unlawful protest at the Constitutional Square and taken to home in Magere. He was arrested while leading a team of NUP elected members of parliament in a peaceful protest over the just contested election result and the abduction of members of opposition by the drone with unknown number plates, among other issues.
We are protesting against the injustice.
Police has confirmed the arrest of the NUP leader, who was first detained at the Central Police Station in Kampala, where he recorded a statement before he was driven to his home in Magere, which is now under high security surveillance.
Hey, we are non-violent. We want our people back. You kidnapped the people of Uganda. They are being tortured. They are being murdered. We are non-violent. And we demand of you to respect the law. We demand of you, police, military, all security apparatus.
According to the police spokesperson Fred Enanga, Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu was arrested because he did not inform the police about the intention to hold a public protest. Enanga also insists that the Ministry of Health standard operating procedures in regards to the crowd and assemblies are still in enforcement and should be followed.
President wa NUP Honorable Chagulanyi Sentamu Robert kituufu akwatiddwa mu kibuga wakati wamu n'omwogezi wa NUP Joel Ssenyonyi n'abalala 8 bano badde bagezaako okwenyigira mu bikola n'okukumaakuma mu bannayuganda omuliro.
Last week, while addressing his supporters at NUP offices in Kamocha, Robert Chagulanyi presented declaration forms which, according to him, showed that he had won election with 54% and called for a countrywide peaceful protest to reclaim his victory. The Deputy Inspector General of Police, Major General Paul Lokechi, has warned that security will not hesitate to crush any element involved in protest in Kampala and any other parts of the country. Chagulanyi recently said over 200 of his supporters are still missing, despite a list released by the Ministry of Internal Affairs detailing the people who were missing. He insisted that many of his supporters are not among those on the list released by the government. Sarah Nakandi, LTV, Select News.
Look at the different articles in Uganda that Robert Chagulanyi plus police have mentioned and have wanted to look at in order to either deal with the protest. Robert Chagulanyi uses those articles to say that he has the right to hold protests, while police uses the same articles in the same constitution to say they have a right to control the public when they become disorderly. Now, police says that Robert Chagulanyi should have written to them in order to be able to hold such a protest, peaceful or not. Now, we need to call Joel Senyonyi to find out whether Robert Chagulanyi and the team actually wrote to police to be able to have and hold this protest. Because remember, the protest was supposed to be held a few days ago when Robert Chagulanyi went to Parliament, but it was not held. Now, Robert Chagulanyi cites Article 3 of the Constitution and Article 20 of the Constitution, while police cite the Public Order Management Act. Tutandikirewa. Let us start with the police citing the Public Order Management Act. What does the Public Order Management Act say for you who does not have knowledge about it? Of course, all you have to do is go through Google, go through your constitution, try and learn it, know your rights, because it is very, very important for you to know your rights as a person. See, for example, when police arrests you and keeps you in prison for more than 24 hours, keeps you in cells for more than 24 hours, do you know that that is illegal for them to keep you behind cells for more than 24 hours without a legal presentation? Do you know that it's illegal for them to keep you there without letting you speak to someone? You have a right to one phone call. You do, and nobody can tell you otherwise. I know in Uganda it's a bit hard to have these particular constitutional rights put into play, but I think once you know them and you show them that you know your rights, then it's hard for them to corner you. Do you know that it's illegal for police officers to pluck off your number plate when you're in the wrong? They're not supposed to do that. You have a driving permit. They're supposed to use your driving permits. I shouldn't be arming you like this on the first show. However, all I'm asking for you to do is read your constitution, know your rights, know what you're doing wrong as a citizen, because there's some decisions you're taking. There's some things that you're doing wrong and you don't know because you don't know the constitution. So the police officer finds you on wrong and tells you what you're doing is wrong, and you say, I am so right, and this is what I'm supposed to do, and they arrest you because you don't know the Constitution. So go ahead and read your Constitution and be as informed as Robert Chagulanyi was. Now, the Public Order Management Act says it is an act to provide for the regulation of public meetings, to provide for the duties and responsibilities of the police, organizers and participants in relation to public meetings, to prescribe measures for safeguarding of public order and for matters related thereto. All it's saying, in short words, is that whoever is planning to organize a public meeting or a protest needs to write to police prior and let them know that they are going to hold the protest in order for police to hold and safeguard public order and other matters relating to security. Now, police has used this particular act to say that unless Robert Chagulanyi writes his protest will be legal. They've said that even before, when Robert Chagulanyi was announcing that they were going to hold non-violent protests, and when Robert Chagulanyi and his team were showing off the affidavits. Police came up and said, do not hold illegal protests or else we'll arrest you, because nobody is going to disorganize the peace in our country. Now, we also remember that on the 27th of March 2020, Section 8 of Uganda's Public Order Management Act of 2013 was dubbed illegal and it was scrapped off. Now, what did Section 8 of the Public Order Management Act say? It says, and it gave the Inspector General of Police sweeping powers, complete powers, extremely big powers to prevent or stop public gatherings in any way he deemed fit. Now, lawyers went to court and said, this is not right, and we will not allow it to happen, because we've seen in the 2016 elections how Besigye was treated during his walk-to-work protests. We saw in the other issues, or in the other times, when Robert Chagulanyi himself was almost beaten to pulp for holding gatherings, and they decided the AIGP cannot have sweeping powers to prevent or stop public gatherings. So they sat down and talked about it, and then it came to force that on the 27th of March 2020, that particular article was killed. And lawyers are saying that they ought to work generally on the Public Order Management Act and see that it is dealt with. 20th November 2013 was when the Public Order Management Act was put in place, as of course we want to bring you back into the discussion. Now, the question that we have for you today is, where is Bobi Wine going wrong with the Constitution? Do you think that Bobi Wine is tagging the Constitution right? Do you think that Bobi Wine is interpreting the Constitution right? Do you think the police is interpreting the Constitution right? What is going on? What is going on? Why isn't there an amicable understanding between the police and Bobi Wine? Because if Bobi Wine wrote to police and cited Articles under 20, Fundamental Human Rights, and Article 3 of anybody who touches the Constitution committing treason, then what is happening? Here's what Bobi Wine tagged. The fundamental and other human rights and freedoms. The state shall guarantee and respect institutions which are charged by the state with responsibility for protecting human rights by providing them with adequate resource of functioning. That's one that comes to the police's side. And then the article also said there shall be freedom of people and groups and individuals to express themselves on exactly their rights. They have the right to freedom of expression, and they have the right to freedom of representation. Now, all that is in the article, and then Bobi Wine also cited Article of the Supremacy of the Constitution, Article 3, that prohibits any person or group of persons to take or retain control of the government of Uganda and its constitution, except in the provision of the Constitution. Any person who singly or in a concert with others by any violent or other unlawful means suspends, overthrows, abrogates, or amends this Constitution, is where Robert Chagulanyi marked his words, amends the Constitution on any part of it or attempts to do so, commits the offense of treason and shall be punished according to the law. And that's exactly what it says. Now, on these constitutions that I've been reading, I don't know if you've been noting that Ekuba Bobi Wine and it supports Bobi Wine. Even on the other side of the Public Management Act, Ekuba police are supporting a police. To Komeo on the fundamental human rights, Ekuba Bobi Wine are supporting a Bobi Wine. Now, the interpretation of the Constitution is a problem, because see, the Constitution is like a religious book. It comes with a wording on this page, and then unless you have a lawyer who is willing to cut it down for you, like the religious leaders come in and try to cut it down and put it in a layman's language, it is hard for you to understand where exactly the Constitution supports you and where exactly the Constitution, the same side that you're looking at, goes against you. Because even when you're practicing your freedom in expression, your freedom in protesting, there has to be rules and regulations that you're supposed to follow. Did Bobi Wine write that letter before he went into protest? Because if he did not, then he was against the law. However, if he did, and police did not respect the fact that he did, then there is a problem. Now, according to police, in the report that they gave us while we were speaking to them, is that among the charges that were given to Robert Kyagulanyi and the group is that 11, of course, of the members of parliament who were arrested is that they were holding unlawful procession. Now, when it is tagged unlawful procession, it only means that Robert Kyagulanyi did not write to police. The only way to make the procession legal is by writing a letter and letting them know that you're going to hold. However, would the police have let Robert Kyagulanyi hold those processions even when he wrote that letter? There's also that. So even when Robert Kyagulanyi thought, I'll write the letter to police, he also knows at the back of his mind that they're not going to allow me hold this protest. They will have all kinds of excuses and I will not hold it. So better to go and face the hammer and the nail right where it is and start my protest. And if I'm arrested, well and good, we will go ahead with that. The defiance campaign that FDC is one of the people that have proceeded it. Now, Lukwago last time spoke to Robert Kyagulanyi and said as the patron of the NUP party, he ought to learn that he's not supposed to hold the procession when he is still the president of the NUP party, because there he is conforming the procession to only NUP, yet the rest of the Ugandans also want to join and the other political parties want to join. So he advised Robert Kyagulanyi to step down for a while as the president and patron of NUP party, hold that procession with all Ugandans, and then later on he can come back as the patron and continue with the party. Now, the other reasons that the 11th plus Robert Kyagulanyi were arrested is they also, while exercising their rights, the two parties said that what they did, police said what they did is they also distracted road users while they were at it, and they also were almost getting violent because they, during the streets, the police say the reason why they wanted them to riot is because they are unscrupulous members of the public who would join and then make this particular peaceful procession worse than it is. So they called upon Robert Kyagulanyi to riot because they said that they wanted to protect Robert Kyagulanyi of the team. If you could play me one more time, Adams Mayambala, the footage where police is talking about the reason why they arrested Robert Kyagulanyi, where he was at the moment, and what exactly it is that Robert Kyagulanyi was doing at the police station at the time. That would be really helpful because I want us to continue with the conversation on that particular point of police saying the reasons why they arrested Kyagulanyi was ABCD, and were those reasons vital? Our numbers will be on the screen. Call us and let us know your views in a very polite way without using insultive words and in a very level-headed way. Adam Mayambala, let's look at that footage one more time.
Hey, we are non-violent. We want our people back.
The National Unity Platform President Robert Kyagulanyi Sentamu allies Bobi Wine has been arrested for holding unlawful protest at the Constitutional Square and taken to home in Magele. He was arrested while leading a team of NUP elected members of parliament in a peaceful protest over the just contested election result and the abduction of members of opposition by the drone with unknown number plates, among other issues.
We are protesting against the injustice.
Police has confirmed the arrest of the NUP leader, who was first detained at the Central Police Station in Kampala, where he recorded a statement before he was driven to his home in Magere, which is now under high security surveillance.
Hey, we are non-violent. We want our people back. You kidnapped the people of Uganda. They are being tortured. They are being murdered. We are non-violent. And we demand of you to respect the law. We demand of you, police, military, all security apparatus.
According to the police spokesperson Fred Enanga, Robert Kyagulanyi Sentamu was arrested because he did not inform the police about the intention to hold a public protest. Enanga also insists that the Ministry of Health standard operating procedures in regards to the crowd and assemblies are still in enforcement and should be followed.
President wa NUP Honorable Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert kituufu akwatiddwa mu kibuga wakati wamu n'omwogezi wa NUP Joel Ssennyonyi n'abalala 8. Bano badde bagezaako okwenyigira mu bikola ebyokwekalakaasa, okuteekawo enkuŋŋaana ezitali wansi w'amateeka n'okukumaakuma mu bannayuganda omuliro.
Last week, while addressing his supporters at NUP offices in Kamocha, Robert Kyagulanyi presented declaration forms which, according to him, showed that he had won election with 54% and called for a countrywide peaceful protest to reclaim his victory. The Deputy Inspector General of Police, Major General Paul Lokechi, has warned that security will not hesitate to crush any element involved in protest in Kampala and any other parts of the country. Kyagulanyi recently said over 200 of his supporters are still missing, despite a list released by the Ministry of Internal Affairs detailing the people who were missing. He insisted that many of his supporters are not among those on the list released by the government. Sarah Nakandi, STV, Select News.
Well, the police spokesperson, while addressing this matter earlier on, had said, quote, "Our politicians should know the right to peaceful assembly is cherished by our government. But people's claim to peaceful protest, but when they see no outcome, it transitions into violent protest. There have been precedents where organizers fail to control the crowd." Of course, they're talking about the 18th November 2020 violence that saw the death of over 54 people in Uganda. And allegedly it started as a non-violent protest of release Robert Kyagulanyi from prison, and then later on it turned violent when someone on social media wrote a statement saying Robert Kyagulanyi had allegedly been stabbed and tortured while in prison and he's at the brink of dying. Now that made everybody go crazy, and there was violence and police shot and non-uniformed police shot. There was stray bullets, there was tear gas, there was every other thing that led to the death of 54 Ugandans and injuries of scores of other Ugandans. Now on that note, remember that government shut down internet for a very long time. Facebook, as I'm speaking, is still off unless you have access to VPN. And they said the reason they did that was, of course, the violence that happened on November 18th. And they said it was instigated by someone who wrote on internet, on social media, and made the crowds go crazy. So they needed to control post-election violence. Aside from that, a number of people have been arrested. 243, according to Robert Kyagulanyi, have been put behind bars, and some of them have been abducted. The likes of Nubian Lee and Eddie Mutwe, Robert Kyagulanyi's bodyguard, have still not been released to death, not even on bail, because the court says, the military court in March India says that they will be causing violence when they come out of prison, and they have that evidence, so they will not be giving them bail regardless of what happens.